She woke before dawn with a heaviness behind her eyes that felt like a curtain being pulled tight across her mind. The fluorescent lights in her dorm hallway blurred, and every step down the corridor felt wrong, as if her legs no longer matched the rhythm her brain expected. Zhu Ling tried to steady herself against the wall, swallowing down the rising wave of dizziness. She had been a top student, sharp-minded, focused, the kind of young woman who never missed class and never complained. But that morning, something inside her had shifted, and none of it made sense. By the afternoon, the numbness had spread through her hands. She dropped a pencil in the middle of a physics problem and couldn't make her fingers pick it back up. Her roommate thought she might be exhausted, maybe coming down with the flu, but Zhu Ling felt a deeper wrongness, something she couldn't articulate. Her vision shimmered at the edges like heat rising off metal. When she tried to speak, the words came out slow and tangled. There was no fever, no cough, no reason for her body to be shutting down, yet every hour took something else from her. Doctors ran tests and offered theories, each one falling apart as soon as it was spoken. Viral infection, nerve disorder, stress, nothing fit. Her hair began to fall out in clumps that slid across her pillow. She rubbed her scalp and felt smooth patches forming beneath her fingertips. The numbness crept up her limbs until walking required someone at her side. By the end of the week, she couldn't stand without gripping the bed frame. Her parents rushed to Beijing, seeing their daughter fading in front of them and begging the hospital for answers. Her classmates watched with growing fear. They had noticed her symptoms long before she entered the hospital: her sudden confusion, the slurred speech, the way she had stared at her textbooks as if the words were sliding off the page. Nothing in her life explained the decline. She had no history of illness, no risky habits, no warning signs. The speed of the deterioration left everyone shaken. She had been perfectly healthy one day and unrecognizable the next. Her condition worsened overnight. Muscles stopped responding. Her body twisted with uncontrollable spasms. She drifted in and out of awareness, hearing voices around her, but unable to hold on to them. Her mind felt like it was being torn apart from inside, and even the most basic thoughts scattered before she could fully grasp them. Her parents leaned over her bed, whispering to her in soft, steady voices, promising her she would come back. But she felt herself slipping into something dark and bottomless. It was her friends who pushed past the walls of the hospital and the silence that surrounded her case. They suspected poisoning long before anyone else did. Her symptoms matched a pattern too precise to ignore: hair loss, nerve damage, extreme pain, violent muscle contractions. They searched medical databases, forums, and old toxicology papers. Thallium, a metal once used in rat poison, odorless, tasteless, deadly in small amounts. They posted online pleas for help using early internet forums, desperately hoping someone outside Beijing would recognize the signs. A toxicologist overseas responded. Her symptoms fit thallium poisoning exactly. The message spread back to China within hours. Someone needed to test her immediately. Someone needed to listen. Her parents demanded the hospital run the right tests, but they met resistance and delay. By the time the results were taken seriously, the poison had already carved deep into her nervous system. Still, her family refused to accept defeat. They moved her between departments, pushing for the antidote despite the uncertainty. Doctors finally administered Prussian blue, the treatment known to bind thallium and help the body push it out. It was late, almost too late, but her decline slowed. She stopped slipping away. Her muscles stopped worsening. Her eyes focused again, just long enough to make it clear she was still there, still fighting beneath the layers of damage. Her parents held her for the first time in days without fearing she would break beneath their hands. Investigators began looking at her environment. Thallium wasn't something one stumbled into by accident. Someone had given it to her. It had to be deliberate. People whispered through the university about jealousy, academic competition, and personal grudges. Questions settled around one name, a classmate with access to chemicals, and a history of friction. But rumors didn't become charges, and suspicion didn't lead to action. There were no public answers, no confession, no conviction. The case stalled in a cloud of silence. While the investigation faltered, Zhu Ling's recovery became the center of her family's life. She regained small movements first, a twitch in her fingers, a shift in her eyes that followed her mother's voice. She learned to control her breathing again, then her swallowing. Each improvement came slowly, painfully, and in fragments. The damage to her nervous system could not be undone, but she was still alive when doctors had once assumed she wouldn't survive another week. Her friends visited and told her about their search, how they had stayed awake for nights looking through medical journals and leaving desperate messages online. They told her that thousands of strangers had responded around the world, people who read about her symptoms and pushed for her to receive the antidote. Her survival became something the entire world had fought for. She listened quietly, her body trembling from the effort of sitting upright, but her eyes held the same determination she'd had before the poisoning. She was still Zhu Ling, even if her life had been reshaped forever. Years passed, and she learned to live within the limitations the poison had carved into her body. Her parents became her constant caregivers, refusing to let her slip into isolation. Her friends stayed by her side long after graduation, carrying forward the life she had almost lost. The world moved on, but the mystery of her poisoning never faded. People still asked who would do such a thing to a gifted young woman. People still wondered why no one had been held accountable. Zhu Ling's survival became an enduring reminder of the power of persistence, her own, and the persistence of the people who refused to let her die without answers. She had faced a substance designed to be invisible, a poison meant to erase the victim before anyone understood what had happened. But she lived long enough for her story to be told, long enough for others to learn from the warning signs that nearly went unnoticed. She survived something no one should face alone. And decades later, the echoes of her case still lingered across medical forums, university corridors, and the memories of those who had searched for the truth when she could no longer speak for herself. Thank you for listening to Horrifying Survival Stories. Subscribe for more stories of those who faced the impossible and lived.